The mining station Kepler 442b hummed with the constant vibration of extraction equipment. Deep beneath the planet's frozen surface, thousands of workers from dozens of different species toiled in the dangerous tunnels. The air was thick with dust and the acrid smell of burning metal. Emergency lights cast eerie shadows on the rough-hewn walls. Zara pressed her scaled hand against her swollen belly and felt her unborn child kick. The draconian female's emerald skin had grown pale from months of working in the dim underground facility. Her species was naturally strong and resilient, but pregnancy made even the hardiest draconian vulnerable. "Another double shift, Zara?" asked Crix, a four-armed centauri who worked the conveyor belt beside her. His orange eyes showed concern as he watched her struggle to lift a heavy ore container. "I need the extra credits," Zara replied, her voice hoarse from the dusty air. "The medical bay charges triple for non-standard species births. If I don't have enough saved, they'll..." She didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew what happened to workers who couldn't pay their medical bills. The Galactic Mining Consortium didn't care about worker welfare. They had contracts with hundreds of desperate worlds, ensuring a constant supply of cheap labor. Workers signed 10-year indenture contracts just to escape poverty on their home planets. The company provided basic food, cramped living quarters, and minimal medical care. Everything else cost extra. Zara had been on Kepler 442b for 7 years already. 3 more years and she would have earned enough to buy passage home to Draconis Prime. But now she was carrying a child, and everything had changed. The baby's father had been a draconian engineer named Voss. He died in a tunnel collapse 6 months ago, along with 23 other workers. The company paid out a small death benefit, barely enough to cover Zara's pregnancy supplements. She was on her own. The extraction alarm blared, signaling the end of another 16-hour shift. Zara's legs ached as she made her way through the maze of corridors toward the residential sector. The walls were lined with moisture condensers that dripped constantly, creating puddles on the metal floor. The air recyclers wheezed and groaned, struggling to filter out the worst of the industrial pollutants. Her quarters were a tiny cube barely large enough for a sleeping platform and a small storage locker. A single viewport looked out onto the planet's desolate surface, where violent storms raged across ice-covered wastelands. Zara had not seen natural sunlight in over a year. She collapsed onto her sleeping platform and checked her credit account on the small terminal. The numbers made her heart sink. Even with double shifts, she was still 3,000 credits short of the minimum required for a safe delivery. The company's medical facility would provide emergency care to save the mother's life, but they wouldn't waste resources on difficult births or weak offspring. Zara closed her eyes and felt her child move again. Draconian pregnancies lasted 14 months, and she still had 2 months to go. The baby was already showing signs of distress from the poor working conditions. The company doctor had told her bluntly that both she and the child were at high risk. "I'll find a way," she whispered, placing both hands on her belly. "I won't let them hurt you." The next morning brought terrible news. The overnight shift had discovered a rich vein of rare minerals in Tunnel 7. The company was demanding increased production quotas from all workers. Anyone who couldn't meet their numbers would have their food rations reduced. Zara stood in line with hundreds of other workers, waiting for their daily assignment tablets. The air was filled with nervous chatter in dozens of languages. Everyone knew that increased quotas meant more accidents, more exhaustion, more deaths. "Attention all personnel," announced Supervisor Grax, a massive Thurian whose species was known for their ruthless efficiency. "The consortium has generously decided to offer bonus incentives for exceptional performance. Workers who exceed their quotas by 50% will receive double pay for those extra units." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Double pay meant the possibility of earning enough for proper medical care, better food, maybe even early contract completion. But 50% above quota was nearly impossible for most workers, especially those in advanced pregnancy. Zara received her assignment for Deep Tunnel 12, one of the most dangerous sections. The tunnel was narrow and unstable, with frequent cave-ins and toxic gas leaks. Only the most desperate workers volunteered for Deep 12. She made her way to the equipment depot and struggled into her protective suit. The heavy gear was designed for average humanoid proportions, not pregnant draconians. The chest plate dug into her ribs, and the weight distribution made her back ache immediately. "You sure about this, Zara?" asked Finn, the human equipment manager. He was one of the few humans on the station, part of a small maintenance crew that had arrived a few months ago. Humans were relatively new to the galactic community, having only achieved faster-than-light travel in the past decade. Most species still considered them primitive and unpredictable. "I don't have a choice," Zara replied, adjusting her helmet's air filters. Finn studied her with those strange human eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Humans had an unsettling way of reading emotional states across species barriers. "There's always a choice. Maybe not a good one, but there's always something. The only choice I have is to work harder or watch my child die," Zara said bitterly. "The company doesn't negotiate. They don't show mercy. They follow their contracts exactly as written." "Contracts can be renegotiated if you know the right pressure points," Finn said quietly. "The consortium depends on their reputation for reliable delivery schedules. Bad publicity in the core worlds could cost them billions in future contracts." Zara laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What publicity? Who's going to report on a few dead workers on a mining station at the edge of nowhere? The newsfeeds don't care about us." Finn was quiet for a moment, then handed her a small emergency beacon. "Keep this with you. If something goes wrong, activate it. Human Search and Rescue has some new protocols you might find interesting." Deep Tunnel 12 was worse than Zara remembered. The air was thick with mineral dust that clung to everything despite the filtration systems. The walls wept acidic moisture that could burn through unprotected skin. Emergency support beams groaned under the immense pressure of rock and ice above. Zara's job was to operate a heavy plasma cutter, breaking apart large ore deposits so they could be loaded onto transport sleds. The tool was powerful but unwieldy, requiring precise control to avoid damaging valuable minerals or causing structural instability. Her pregnancy made everything harder. Her center of gravity was off, making it difficult to maintain balance on the uneven tunnel floor. Her stamina was reduced, forcing her to take frequent breaks that cut into her productivity. Worst of all, the baby seemed to react to the stress hormones flooding her system, kicking and moving in ways that made concentration nearly impossible. By midday, Zara was barely keeping up with minimum quota requirements. The double pay bonus seemed impossible. Other workers moved past her with loaded sleds, their productivity meters showing green while hers flickered between yellow and red. She paused to rest against a support beam and felt a sharp pain in her lower back. The baby was pressing against something important, making it hard to breathe. She activated her suit's medical scanner and frowned at the readings. Her blood pressure was elevated, and stress indicators were approaching dangerous levels. Just a little more, she told herself. Just enough to make quota. The plasma cutter felt heavier with each use. Her arms trembled from fatigue as she tried to maintain steady cuts through the dense ore. Sweat dripped into her eyes despite the suit's climate control. The emergency beacon Finn had given her pressed against her ribs, a constant reminder of human optimism that seemed naive in the face of corporate reality. A loud crack echoed through the tunnel. Zara looked up to see a spiderweb of fractures spreading across the ceiling above her work area. She had cut too deep, weakening a crucial support point. The ancient ice and rock above groaned ominously. Other workers in the tunnel heard the sound and began moving toward the exit. Standard procedure was immediate evacuation when structural integrity was compromised. But Zara hesitated. Her productivity numbers were still below quota. If she left now, her food rations would be reduced, and she couldn't afford to lose any nutrition with her pregnancy complications. She made a desperate decision. Instead of evacuating, she moved to a different section of ore and began cutting again. If she could extract enough valuable minerals in the next few minutes, it might be worth the risk. The ceiling groaned again, louder this time. Dust and small rocks began falling around her. The fracture lines were spreading faster than she had expected. She should run, but her hands kept working the plasma cutter. Just a few more cuts. Just enough to secure her baby's future. A massive chunk of ceiling crashed down 10 meters away, sending shockwaves through the tunnel floor. Emergency alarms began blaring, and automated warning messages echoed from the speakers. Structural collapse imminent. All personnel evacuate immediately. Zara's legs locked up. The baby was moving frantically now, responding to her terror. She couldn't think clearly through the panic and pain. The plasma cutter slipped from her numb fingers and clattered to the ground. That's when she remembered Finn's beacon. Her fingers fumbled for the device, barely managing to activate it before another section of ceiling came down. This time, the falling rocks were much closer. One boulder missed her by centimeters, shattering against the tunnel wall. She tried to run, but her legs weren't working properly. Something was wrong with the baby. Sharp pains shot through her abdomen, and she could feel warm fluid running down her legs inside the protective suit. She was going into premature labor in the middle of a collapsing tunnel. The exit seemed impossibly far away as more of the ceiling disintegrated. Zara stumbled forward, one hand supporting her belly, the other feeling along the tunnel wall for guidance. The emergency lighting flickered and failed, leaving only the faint glow of her suit's headlamp to guide her. She made it perhaps 50 meters before her legs gave out entirely. The contractions were coming faster now, and each one felt like her body was being torn apart from the inside. She collapsed against the tunnel wall and felt the baby dropping lower in her pelvis. This was happening whether she was ready or not. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the tunnel. Heavy boots splashing through puddles of acidic water. A bright light appeared in the distance, much brighter than standard emergency equipment. Over here, a voice called out. It was Finn, but he sounded different. More authoritative. I've got her. The light resolved into a powerful search beam mounted on military-grade rescue gear. Finn appeared out of the darkness wearing equipment Zara had never seen before. His standard maintenance uniform had been replaced by some kind of advanced protective suit that looked far more sophisticated than anything the consortium provided. How did you find me so fast? Zara gasped between contractions. Human emergency response is a bit more thorough than what most species are used to, Finn replied, kneeling beside her and activating a medical scanner. His movements were precise and professional, like someone with extensive training. We don't just send rescue teams. We send entire support networks. Another contraction hit, and Zara screamed. The baby was coming right now, in the middle of a collapsing tunnel, with no medical facilities, no proper equipment, nothing but a human maintenance worker who suddenly seemed to know exactly what he was doing. Listen to me, Zara, Finn said, his voice calm and reassuring. You're going to be okay. Both of you. But I need you to trust me and do exactly what I say. As if in response to his words, the tunnel ceiling groaned ominously overhead. More rocks cascaded down around them, but Finn didn't even flinch. He was focused entirely on her, as if the immediate danger of being crushed to death was secondary to helping her through the delivery. That's when Zara realized that humans might be very different from what everyone assumed. This wasn't just rescue. This was something much more comprehensive. Something that suggested the primitive newcomers to galactic civilization had capabilities that other species had seriously underestimated. The contractions were coming continuously now, and she could feel the baby crowning. In a few minutes, her child would be born in the worst possible circumstances. Unless this human really did know something that could save them both. Finn's hands moved with practiced efficiency as he unpacked medical equipment from his rescue kit. The devices were unlike anything Zara had seen in the company's medical bay. They hummed with quiet power and projected holographic displays that showed her vital signs in real time. How do you have this equipment? Zara gasped between contractions. Maintenance workers don't carry surgical gear. I'm not just maintenance, Finn replied, attaching sensor patches to her suit. The human crew here has multiple specializations. We believe in redundancy. He pressed a device against her neck, and immediately the pain began to subside. Local anesthetic and muscle relaxant. Safe for both you and the baby. The tunnel shuddered around them as more of the ceiling collapsed. A massive boulder crashed down just meters away, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. But Finn continued his work with steady concentration, as if collapsing tunnels were routine background noise. "We need to move," Zara said urgently. "The whole section is coming down." "No," Finn said calmly. "Moving you right now could cause complications. The baby's heart rate is elevated, and you're showing signs of placental distress. We deliver here and now, then we move." He activated another device that projected a sterile field around them, creating a bubble of clean air and filtered light. Inside the field, the environment was suddenly hospital clean despite the industrial chaos surrounding them. How is this possible? Zara stared at the medical equipment that belonged in a core world facility, not a frontier mining station. Human emergency medicine operates on different principles than galactic standard, Finn explained while monitoring her contractions. Most species focus on treating symptoms after problems occur. Humans prefer preventing problems before they start. A new contraction began, and Zara felt the overwhelming urge to push. The baby was coming whether the circumstances were ideal or not. Finn guided her through the process with quiet expertise, his hands steady and sure. "I can see the head," he reported. "Everything looks good. One more push should do it." Zara bore down with all her remaining strength. The pain was intense but manageable thanks to Finn's anesthetic. She felt the baby slip free, followed by immediate relief and the most beautiful sound she had ever heard, her child's first cry. "Congratulations," Finn said, lifting a small, perfect draconian infant. "You have a healthy daughter." Tears streamed down Zara's face as Finn placed the baby on her chest. The little girl was tiny but vigorous, her scales a beautiful deep green like her mother's. She opened bright golden eyes and looked directly at Zara with the unmistakable intelligence of her species. "She's perfect," Zara whispered. Finn was already working on the afterbirth and checking for complications. APGAR scores are excellent. Birth weight is low but within acceptable parameters for gestational age. No obvious genetic anomalies or developmental issues. You know draconian medical terminology? I know medical terminology for 67 different species, Finn replied matter-of-factly. Standard training. The tunnel groaned again, and this time Finn looked concerned. Now we move. Can you walk? Zara tried to stand and immediately felt dizzy. The blood loss and physical exertion had left her weak. I don't think so. Not a problem. Finn activated something on his suit, and it began to reconfigure itself. Panels shifted and extended, creating a stretcher-like platform. Adaptive rescue gear. Another human innovation. He helped Zara onto the stretcher and secured the baby in a portable incubator that had materialized from his equipment pack. The incubator was clearly designed for multiple species, with adjustable atmosphere controls and species-specific monitoring systems. Hold on, Finn said, activating the stretcher's locomotion system. They moved through the collapsing tunnel faster than Zara would have thought possible. The stretcher's anti-grav units kept the ride smooth despite the rough terrain. Behind them, she could hear the final collapse of the section where she had been working. Without Finn's intervention, both she and her daughter would have been crushed. They emerged into the main tunnel system to find chaos. Emergency crews were everywhere, trying to evacuate workers from the affected areas. But something was different about the response. Instead of the usual slow, bureaucratic corporate procedures, this evacuation was happening with military precision. What's going on? Zara asked. The human crew took over emergency operations about 10 minutes ago, Finn explained. Turns out the consortium's emergency protocols are inadequate by human safety standards. Supervisor Grax appeared, his massive Thurian frame blocking their path. Where do you think you're going with that worker? She needs to report for medical evaluation and death assessment. Finn stopped the stretcher but didn't move aside. This worker and her infant require immediate advanced medical care. They're being transferred to the human medical facility. There is no human medical facility, Grax growled. All medical services go through consortium facilities. Company policy. Company policy just changed, said a new voice. A human woman approached, wearing what appeared to be a command uniform. She was small compared to Grax, but something in her bearing made the massive supervisor step backward. I'm Captain Sarah Chan, senior human representative on this station, she announced. As of 30 minutes ago, we've assumed responsibility for all emergency medical services under Galactic Emergency Response Protocol 7 Alpha. That's a core world protocol, Grax protested. It doesn't apply to frontier facilities. It applies everywhere there are human citizens at risk, Chen replied calmly. And, it turns out we have a very broad definition of who counts as under human protection. Zara watched this exchange with growing amazement. The humans were somehow taking over the medical emergency response from the consortium, and they were doing it through legal channels that the supervisor couldn't argue with. Furthermore, Chen continued, we've identified numerous safety violations in this facility that require immediate remediation. Mining operations in the affected sectors are suspended pending compliance review. You can't suspend operations. Grax's voice rose to a roar. The consortium has delivery contracts. The consortium can explain to their clients why they prioritized profits over basic safety standards, Chen replied. Human emergency response teams don't negotiate with unsafe working conditions. Finn continued moving the stretcher while Chen handled the increasingly agitated supervisor. They arrived at a section of the station Zara had never seen before. The corridors here were cleaner and better lit. The air smelled fresh instead of metallic. When did you build all this? Zara asked. We've been making improvements since we arrived, Finn replied. Humans have a compulsive need to upgrade infrastructure. It's apparently a species trait. They entered a medical facility that rivaled anything Zara had seen on core worlds. Clean white walls, advanced equipment, and, most importantly, medical staff representing dozens of different species. Not just humans, but Draconians, Centauri, Thurians, and species she didn't even recognize. How did you get Draconian doctors here? She asked. We didn't bring them here, explained a familiar voice. Dr. Vex, an elderly Draconian physician, approached her stretcher. They brought us here. Apparently humans have been quietly recruiting medical professionals from across the galaxy. Zara stared at the doctor in shock. Dr. Vex? You were the chief physician on Draconis Prime Medical Center. What are you doing on a mining station? Practicing medicine the way it should be practiced, Dr. Vex replied with a smile. Free from corporate interference and profit motives. The humans made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Finn transferred her to a proper hospital bed while Dr. Vex began a comprehensive examination. The equipment was state-of-the-art, and the doctor's touch was gentle and professional. For the first time in months, Zara felt like she was receiving actual medical care instead of corporate-mandated minimal treatment. Both mother and infant are in excellent condition, Dr. Vex announced after completing his examination. The delivery was handled expertly under difficult circumstances. What happens now? Zara asked. I can't afford the treatment costs, and the company will demand I return to work. Dr. Vex and Finn exchanged a look. That's where things get interesting, Finn said. Human Emergency Response Protocol includes something called Comprehensive Care Continuation. It means once you're under our medical protection, you stay under our protection until the emergency is resolved. How long does that take? As long as necessary, Dr. Vex replied. And, humans have a very thorough definition of what constitutes a resolved emergency. Captain Chen appeared in the medical bay, looking satisfied. Supervisor Grax is currently reviewing a comprehensive list of safety violations that will take approximately 6 months to remediate. Until then, all affected workers are suspended from active duty with full medical benefits. Zara struggled to process this information. You're giving everyone 6 months off with medical coverage? We're giving everyone 6 months to decide whether they want to continue working under substandard conditions, Chen corrected. There are alternatives. What kind of alternatives? Chen pulled up a chair beside Zara's bed. Tell me, have you ever heard of the Human Colonial Initiative? No. It's a new program. Humans have identified several dozen worlds suitable for colonization, but we need diverse populations to make the colonies viable. We're offering full citizenship and land grants to qualified individuals from any species. Zara felt her baby stir against her chest. The little girl was sleeping peacefully, unaware that her entire future might be changing. What's the catch? No catch, Chen replied. Humans believe that diversity makes communities stronger. We want colonies with Draconians, Centauri, Thurians, and dozens of other species. We want different perspectives, different skills, different ways of solving problems. And, in exchange, you become human citizens with all the rights and protections that entails. Your daughter grows up on a world with clean air, open spaces, and unlimited opportunities. You never have to worry about corporate medical bills or food rations or working double shifts just to survive. Dr. Vex leaned forward. I've seen the colonial worlds, Zara. They're beautiful. Clean water, fertile soil, communities where people help each other instead of competing for scraps. Zara looked down at her daughter. The baby's golden eyes were open now, looking around the clean, bright medical facility with curiosity. This was already a better environment than the cramped quarters and polluted air of the mining station. Why? Zara asked. Why are humans doing this? What do you gain? Chen was quiet for a moment before answering. Humans spent thousands of years making the same mistakes other species are making now. We exploited our workers, polluted our environment, prioritized short-term profits over long-term sustainability. We nearly destroyed our own world before we learned better. She gestured around the medical facility. We learned that taking care of people isn't just morally right, it's also more efficient. Healthy, educated, motivated populations are more productive than desperate, exploited ones. Communities that include diverse perspectives solve problems faster than homogeneous groups. Finn nodded in agreement. The corporate model treats workers as disposable resources. The human model treats them as valuable partners. Guess which approach produces better results? So this is all an experiment? This is all a partnership, Chen corrected. We're not saving you out of charity. We're inviting you to help us build something better than what either of our species could achieve alone. Zara felt her daughter's tiny hand wrap around her finger. The gesture was instinctive but somehow meaningful. This little girl deserved better than a life of corporate indentured servitude. She deserved clean air and open skies and the chance to choose her own future. What about my contract with the consortium? Voided due to unsafe working conditions, Chen replied. Human Legal Review found multiple violations of galactic labor standards. The company will be busy dealing with regulatory investigations for the next several years. And the other workers? Everyone gets to choose. Some will probably stay and work under improved conditions once the safety violations are fixed. Others will take our offer of colonial citizenship. A few might choose to return to their homeworlds with the transportation costs paid by consortium fines. Dr. Vex smiled. The humans are very thorough when it comes to providing options. Zara looked around the medical facility again. Outside the windows, she could see human crews working to improve the station's infrastructure. They moved with purpose and efficiency, but also with an obvious concern for safety that was entirely absent from normal corporate operations. How do I know this isn't too good to be true? Finn pulled out a data tablet and showed her detailed information about human colonial worlds. Real data, verified by independent sources, showing thriving communities with impressive quality of life statistics. Because humans don't make promises we can't keep, he replied. Our reputation in the galactic community depends on following through on our commitments. Captain Chen stood up. Take your time deciding. You and your daughter are welcome to stay here as long as you need. No bills, no deadlines, no pressure. When you're ready to choose your future, we'll help you make it happen. As the humans left her to rest, Zara held her sleeping daughter close. For the first time since learning she was pregnant, she felt hope. Real, tangible hope for a future that didn't involve corporate exploitation and barely survivable working conditions. Her sacrifice had been meant to save her child's life. But, somehow, these strange humans had found a way to give them both something much more valuable, the chance for a real life, with dignity and opportunity and freedom. The baby stirred and opened those beautiful golden eyes again. This time, Zara smiled back. "We're going to be okay, little one," she whispered. "We're going to be better than okay." 3 years later, Zara stood in the doorway of her home on New Terra, watching her daughter Lyra play in the garden. The little girl had grown into a bright, curious toddler with her mother's emerald scales and an infectious laugh that could be heard across their small valley. "Mama, look!" Lyra called out, holding up a flower she had picked. The blossom was unlike anything that grew on Draconis Prime, a native Terra species with petals that shifted color in the sunlight. "Beautiful, sweetheart," Zara replied, stepping onto the wooden porch that overlooked their property. 5 acres of fertile land, granted free and clear as part of their colonial citizenship package. It still felt like a dream. The settlement of Haven Valley stretched out below them, a collection of homes and farms nestled between rolling hills and a crystal-clear river. The community included 47 families from 12 different species, all working together to build something new. Zara's house was built in a style that accommodated draconian physiology, higher ceilings, broader doorways, and a heating system that maintained the temperature preferences of her species. But it also incorporated design elements suggested by their human neighbors, like large windows for natural light and a kitchen layout optimized for efficiency. "Morning," Zara called Tom Harrison, their human neighbor, as he walked past with his family. His wife Maria was Centauri, and their 2 children displayed the fascinating genetic mixing that was becoming common in human colonies. "Lyra's getting taller every day." "She's going to be as tall as her father," Zara replied with a smile. The memory of Voss no longer brought only pain. Here on New Terra, she could remember the good times and look forward to sharing those memories with their daughter. Tom's son Jake, an energetic 8-year-old with his mother's orange eyes and his father's brown hair, ran up to the fence. "Can Lyra come to the river with us? We're going to catch those rainbow fish." "She's too young for fishing," Zara said automatically. "Not to fish," Jake laughed. "Just to watch. My mom's coming, and she knows water safety for all species." Zara considered this. On the mining station, she would never have let Lyra out of her sight. Children were vulnerable, and the environment was hostile. But New Terra was different. The entire community looked out for all the children, regardless of species. "All right," Zara said. "But stay close to Maria." She watched Jake carefully lift Lyra over the low fence that separated their properties. The boy was gentle and protective, having been raised in the human tradition that treated younger children as precious community resources. It was a stark contrast to the corporate mentality that viewed children as potential future labor units. Dr. Vex appeared at Zara's elbow, moving with the quiet step that his species had perfected over millennia. The elderly Draconian had become a close friend over the past 3 years, serving as both physician and unofficial grandfather to Lyra. "You're still learning to trust," he observed with gentle amusement. "Can you blame me?" Zara replied. 3 years ago, I was convinced I'd have to watch my daughter die because I couldn't afford medical care. Now she's playing with alien children by a pristine river on a world where everyone has enough to eat." "The adjustment takes time," Dr. Vex agreed. "I've been studying the psychological adaptation patterns of former corporate workers. The average time to full community integration is about 4 years. What happens to those who don't adapt? According to human statistics, fewer than 3% choose to leave," Dr. Vex replied. "Most of those return to their home worlds rather than going back to corporate employment." They walked together toward the community center, a large building in the middle of Haven Valley that served multiple functions. This morning it was hosting the weekly council meeting where colonists discussed community issues and made decisions about their shared future. The council chamber was designed to accommodate the physical needs of all species in their community. Seating areas adjusted for different body types, environmental controls maintained appropriate temperature and humidity for each species' comfort zone, and translation systems ensured everyone could participate regardless of language barriers. Captain Chen, now serving as the human colonial administrator, called the meeting to order. Over the years, she had become more than just a government official. She was a trusted community leader who genuinely cared about the welfare of every colonist. First item today is the education system, Chen announced. The new school building is nearly complete, and we need to finalize the curriculum. Zara took her usual seat near the front. Education was one of the issues she cared most about. Lyra would start formal schooling next year, and Zara wanted to ensure the system would nurture her daughter's unique abilities. The human model emphasizes critical thinking and collaborative problem solving, explained Dr. Sarah Kim, the colony's education director. We want children to learn how to think, not just what to think. What about species-specific needs? Asked Thorak, a Thurian engineer whose children were already in the preliminary programs. Every child receives instruction in their species' history, culture, and physiological requirements, Dr. Kim replied. But they also learn about other species and how to work effectively in mixed groups. Vren, a Centauri artist, raised one of her forearms. My daughter is showing artistic talents that don't fit traditional Centauri patterns. Will there be support for children who don't match their species' stereotypes? That's exactly what we want, Chen interjected. Human research shows that diverse perspectives and unexpected talents are the key to innovation and progress. Zara listened to the discussion with growing confidence in the community's approach. On Draconis Prime, Lyra would have been expected to follow traditional draconian paths, engineering, military service, or resource management. Here, she would be encouraged to explore her own interests and develop her unique combination of abilities. After the meeting, Zara walked to the medical center where she worked as a nurse. Dr. Vex had helped her earn the necessary certifications, and the human medical system had recognized her years of informal medical experience on the mining station. The medical center served not just Haven Valley but several other settlements in the region. Patients came from dozens of species, and the facility was equipped to handle virtually any medical emergency. It was a far cry from the corporate medical bay that had treated workers as inconvenient expenses. Good morning, Zara, greeted Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the human physician who supervised the nursing staff. We've got an interesting case coming in. A Siliconian trader with mineral poisoning. Should be right up your alley. Zara smiled at the reference to her mining station experience. Those years had been difficult, but they had given her valuable knowledge about industrial injuries and toxic exposure. Here, that knowledge helped her save lives instead of just meeting productivity quotas. The Siliconian patient arrived an hour later, his crystalline body structure showing the telltale discoloration of rare metal poisoning. On most worlds, this would have been a death sentence. Siliconian physiology was poorly understood by most medical professionals, and the specialized treatment was extremely expensive. But the human colonial medical system operated on different principles. They had comprehensive databases on every known species, and cost was never a factor in treatment decisions. Classic cadmium exposure, Zara diagnosed after reviewing the patient's scans. He's been mining in an unregulated asteroid field for months without proper protection. Dr. Rodriguez nodded. Treatment plan? Chelation therapy with species-specific modifications, Zara replied. The Siliconian metabolic system processes toxins differently than carbon-based species. We'll need to adjust the dosage and timing. They worked together for the next 6 hours, carefully monitoring the patient's response to treatment. The Siliconian trader was conscious and alert, grateful for the care but clearly surprised by the quality of the medical facility. This is better than anything on the core worlds, he admitted during a recovery break. How can a frontier colony afford this level of equipment? We don't think of it as an expense, Dr. Rodriguez explained. We think of it as an investment. Healthy communities are more productive and more innovative than sick ones. The trader looked confused. But the profit margins. are excellent when you factor in reduced insurance costs, lower worker turnover, higher productivity, and increased innovation, Zara said. The humans ran the calculations. Taking care of people turns out to be more profitable than exploiting them. But that's not how the consortium operates. The consortium is losing market share to human companies at an impressive rate, Dr. Rodriguez replied. Turns out customers prefer doing business with organizations that have good reputations for treating their people well. By evening, the Siliconian trader was fully recovered and eager to spread word about the quality of care available in human colonies. Zara finished her shift and walked home through the settling dusk, enjoying the clean air and the sound of children playing in the distance. She found Lyra in the garden with Tom Harrison, who was teaching her how to identify different types of plants. The little girl was fascinated by the botanical diversity of New Terra, collecting samples and asking endless questions about how things grew. "Mama!" Lyra ran to her with a handful of seedlings. "Tom says I can plant these by our house and they'll make flowers next spring." "That sounds wonderful," Zara replied, scooping her daughter into her arms. Lyra was getting heavier, but Zara still loved holding her close. "Thanks for watching her," she told Tom. "My pleasure," Tom replied. "She's got a real gift for understanding plant biology. Maria thinks she might become an agricultural scientist." Zara smiled at the idea. Agricultural science was a respected profession that would let Lyra travel between worlds, helping colonies develop sustainable food systems. It was exactly the kind of meaningful work that human colonies encouraged. After dinner, Zara sat on her porch with Dr. Vex, watching the stars emerge in New Terra's clear sky. The planet had no light pollution, and the view of the galaxy was spectacular. Somewhere out there were the mining stations and corporate worlds where millions of workers still toiled under conditions similar to what she had endured. "Do you ever feel guilty?" she asked Dr. Vex. "About what?" "About being here, being safe and happy, while so many others are still trapped." Dr. Vex was quiet for a long moment. "I used to," he admitted. "But Captain Chen helped me understand something important. The best way to help those people isn't to go back and suffer with them. It's to build something better and show them there's an alternative." "How do we show them?" "By succeeding," Dr. Vex replied. "Every human colony that thrives is proof that there's a better way. Every corporate worker who hears about our standard of living starts questioning their own situation." As if to prove his point, Zara's communicator chimed with an incoming message. She checked the display and saw it was from Crix, her former co-worker from the mining station. "Zara," the Centauri's voice crackled through the speaker. "I heard about your colony from a trader who passed through. Is it real? The stories about free medical care and land grants?" Zara smiled and activated the video pickup so Crix could see her comfortable home and peaceful surroundings. "It's real, my friend. And there's room for you here if you want it." The conversation that followed was long and detailed. Crix had dozens of questions about colonial life, work opportunities, and the application process for human citizenship. By the end of the call, he was clearly considering making the jump. "I'll talk to my family," he said finally. "This could be the chance we've been hoping for." After the call ended, Zara felt a warm satisfaction. One more family might escape the corporate trap. One more group of people might discover the kind of life that humans were offering to anyone willing to help build their communities. Later that night, she tucked Lyra into bed and listened to her daughter's prayers. The little girl had learned the custom from their human neighbors, though she adapted it to include thanks for the beautiful garden, the crystal-clear river, and all the friends from different worlds who made Haven Valley feel like home. "Mama," Lyra said sleepily, "will I always live here?" "You can live wherever you choose," Zara replied. "That's what freedom means. When you grow up, you might want to explore other worlds, or maybe study on Earth, or help start new colonies." "Will you come with me?" Zara smoothed her daughter's scales and kissed her forehead. "Wherever you go, you'll carry our love with you. And you'll always have a home to come back to." As Lyra drifted off to sleep, Zara reflected on how much her definition of sacrifice had changed. 3 years ago, she had been prepared to sacrifice her life to give her child a chance at survival. But the humans had shown her a different kind of sacrifice, the temporary sacrifice of familiar misery in exchange for the unknown possibilities of freedom and dignity. It hadn't been easy. Learning to trust, learning to hope, learning to believe in a future that wasn't defined by corporate quotas and survival requirements. But every day brought new proof that the choice had been right. Outside her window, New Terra's 3 moons cast silver light across the valley. In the distance, she could see the lights of other homes where families from across the galaxy were building new lives together. Human families, Draconian families, Centauri families, and dozens of others, all united by their shared commitment to creating something better than what they had left behind. The sacrifice had been worth it. Not just the sacrifice of her own safety in that collapsing tunnel, but the sacrifice of fear and cynicism that had followed. The humans hadn't just saved her life, they had given her a future worth living, and a community worth belonging to. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new possibilities. But tonight, Zara fell asleep in her own home, on her own land, surrounded by friends who valued her not as a labor unit but as a person with dignity and worth. And, in the room next door, her daughter dreamed of gardens and rainbow fish and a galaxy full of friends she had yet to meet. Dreams that were no longer impossible fantasies, but achievable goals in a universe where humans had proven that taking care of each other was not just morally right, but also brilliantly practical. The sacrifice had ended. The brighter future had begun.